December 24th, 1990. Dixon, a polar village. 7 in the evening local time. An ancient symbol of Trinity drawn on paper is placed into the mirror setup. Past, present, future. What happened next was a complete surprise to the scientists. A force field formed around the mirror setup. It was a cancer field. A person approached the mirrors and was immediately gripped by an inexplicable fear. A step back and the fear vanished.
Fear was only possible in the middle of the night on the 25th of December.
And again, a surprise. The space inside the mirrors greeted the researchers with an inexplicable flash of eternity. The compass needle behaved erratically, and from above, witnesses in the street at the time spoke of an odd northern lights that suddenly flared up over the building where mirror work was underway. But that wasn't enough. As soon as the experiment began inside the mirrors, a mysterious object would appear over the settlement. It was a shimmering disc followed by a long glowing tail.
Observe this 8 times, when the minute marking the start and ending of operations in Kozyrev's mirrors was accompanied by an extreme instance of this phenomenon.
As soon as the operation ceased, the disc vanished. Only a melting trail remained in the atmosphere. Mysterious phenomena defied explanation. It is assumed that the symbol placed inside the mirror installation responded to the Earth's information space.
We have yet to unravel the mystery of these mirrors, so to speak, their depth. We've only just approached the...
In this movie, we will tell about the unique experiments with mirrors that Russian scientists are conducting. The effects encountered by the researchers are shocking. The results are astonishing. This day, 212 years before our era, remembered by those who survived, was unforgettable for a lifetime. Hundreds of little songbirds suddenly lit up on the fortress line. At first they were just dazzled, but soon something incredible happened. Roman ships approaching Syracuse began to ignite one after another like torches. The fear of the Byzantine Romans was panic-stricken. And the culprit behind all this was a mathematician. But the brilliant Archimedes applied his new invention, a concave mirror made up of many ordinary mirrors. Today, such mirrors are widely used in telescopes, solar heaters, and solar power stations. They are capable of concentrating huge amounts of light and heat energy at a single point. However, magicians have always believed that concave mirrors gather some kind of astral light in their focus, which awakens in a person the ability to see clearly. Wizards gazed into divination bowls, waiting for miraculous images to appear. The past, the present, the future. Everything could have been revealed. In a way beyond understanding, Roger Bacon looked hundreds of years into the future. Even in the 13th century, he predicted the invention of the microscope and telescope, cars and airplanes, ships powered by engines. 200 years before the invention of gunpowder, he described its composition and effects. Long before science discovered it, he already knew about the structure of biological cells and the process of embryo formation. Where does such knowledge come from? They say a mysterious mirror aided the scholarly monk. Bacon mentioned it himself. I saw a star in the concave mirror that had the shape of a snail. It is located between the navel of Pegasus, the pass of Andromeda, and the head of Cassiopeia. It's astonishing. But right here in the universe, 4 centuries later, the first extragalactic nebulous planet will be discovered. The Andromeda Spiral Nebula. The greatest medieval scientist aimed to unify physics and magic, medicine and ethics, mathematics and mystical insights, and naturally, he made a lot of enemies among both scientists and clerics. History has preserved their accusations. For instance, this one. He made 2 mirrors at Oxford University. With one of them, he could light a candle at any time of the day. In another, you could see what people are doing anywhere on Earth, experimenting with the first mirror. Students spent more time lighting candles than studying books. Therefore, by unanimous agreement of the university, both mirrors were shattered. The power is in the name. What happens to a person under the influence of concave mirrors? How do they manage to break free from the boundary of the familiar world, seeing nothing, invisible to the naked eye?
It seems that inside a Zakol is a special psychophysical zone that activates us to become conscious from within.
In these strange states, people stop responding to the surrounding reality, not distracted by sounds, light, movement, speech. But this is not a dream, not a deception. Not losing consciousness. Consciousness doesn't leave a person in these moments. It continues to work actively, but in a different mode. In a mysterious way, information becomes accessible to humans that could not have been perceived by their senses. Sometimes he is visited by deep insights, extraordinary revelations.
This essentially is tuning into resonance with a specific problem. If it is believed that a person is connected with morality, if it concerns data banks, the viewpoint is that it prompts a query for a specific solution to a specific problem. This resonates with the system and receives exactly this information.
Since on the names, people have intentionally induced such states using various methods and techniques, including mirrors. Over recent years, Russian scientists have experimentally proven that it's neither fiction nor self-delusion.
Changes in the state of consciousness can occur under the influence of a specific arrangement of mirrors.
First and foremost, these are shouted mirrors. It's believed that they focusing on nothing and subtle energies activate certain brain areas, thereby inducing the human consciousness into a special state. Such states often arise in a person spontaneously, involuntarily. Apparently, nature has taken care to give us the opportunity to contact alien intelligence. It is possible that the shape of the human skull plays a special role in this. After all, this is also a kind of concave mirror.
I assume that the skull and the tissues surrounding the skull, as well as the underlying from the inside, to the skull, they can play.
But what exactly happens inside the skull in altered states of consciousness? Dozens of people with superpowers, psychics, clairvoyants, shamans, priests have gone through Olga Kayokina's laboratory.
We've found, yes, the brain activity of these people. It significantly differs from the brain activity of ordinary people.
Modern equipment allows us to see how the brain works in different states of consciousness. Bright spots on the screen are the most active areas of the brain. In a normal state, the picture somewhat resembles a starry sky, scattered with stars in a chaotic manner. But when consciousness shifts into a special mode, stars begin to gather in the form of dense clouds of various shapes.
They line up as a stream, as unique rays, as unique such channels, concentration of sources directed in a specific way.
This discovery was first made by Russian scientists. Speculated, could such brain activity be the cause of altered states of consciousness? And then an enticing idea arose. Is it possible to activate certain areas of the brain, changing the mirror properties of the skull, and thus awaken dormant super abilities in a person? Apparently, this idea is not that new. This strange custom existed since ancient times and on all continents. Children had their skulls artificially deformed. It is commonly believed that this way people were tried to be made to resemble some egg-headed gods. perhaps those whose remains archaeologists discover from time to time in different parts of the world. It is believed that their intuitions were much more developed, extrasensory and telepathic abilities. Maybe that's why the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, and other cultures revered those with the assertive skull so much. Archaeologists usually discover similar skulls in the remains of chiefs and priests. Who knows, maybe the head was deformed deliberately to activate specific brain areas and thereby awaken superpower controllers. Clairvoyance, telepathic and hypnotic touch. But the same effect can be achieved by less cruel means. Let's take a look at the headwear of the clergy and nobility, such as tiaras, mitres and crowns. There is an opinion that these seemingly absurd metal structures with precious stones are not just for decoration, but also for special secret purposes. By redistributing energy in the human brain, they are able to awaken superhuman abilities in a person. It's hard to say if the St. Petersburg scientist Alexander Bachenko knew about this. Even before the revolution, he conducted experiments on telepathic communication using an invented telepathic helmet, a special mirrored structure made of various metals. As witnesses recalled, Bachenko's experiments yielded astonishing results. Telepathically transmitted images were received correctly almost 100% of the time. Maybe Bachenko's experiments would have been forgotten if not for the events that happened in Siberia 80 years later. The Novosibirsk scientists also decided to use concave mirrors to activate super abilities. But in the focus of the mirrors, they placed not just the head but the entire person. The scientists were inspired for these experiments by the ideas of the Soviet astrophysicist Kozyrev. He assumed the existence of some special space in the universe, full of energy information flows. While experimenting, the scientists discovered that these streams can be absorbed, reflected, and even focused. The best reflecting material turned out to be aluminum. Kozyrev's ideas were taken up by Novosibirsk scientists, who created special devices and called them Kozyrev's mirrors.
We are in Novosibirsk. They came up with relying on a Kozyrevo device in the form of large cylinders, aluminum. It was believed that the space in these aluminum cylinders reflects and somehow concentrates, and we conditionally called such mirrors mirrors, but this is a conditional name by Kozyrev. They were made in Novosibirsk, and the second series of mirrors was moved to Dixon.
Different versions of such mirrors were developed. Vertical, horizontal, spiral, with a right or left twist. Their choice depends on the experiment's tasks. The tasks set by the Novosibirsk scientists were quite unusual. For instance, researchers tried to detect certain currents in the informational space of our planet. The method is simple. The operator, while in Kozyrev's mirror, must mentally send some information into the space. For example, a graphical symbol, and other people over long distances must receive this message.
We threw a symbol like throwing a note in a bottle and tried to find where it would be accepted, by whom and under what conditions.
A so-called figurative designer, made up of 77 signs and symbols from various cultures and peoples, was prepared in advance. 5 minutes before the show started, the computer randomly selected either 3 or 5 symbols from this symbolic constructor. These symbols were given to the person inside the mirror setup. He had to mentally embed them into the planet's information field.
Before this, he didn't know what. They will have to transmit and work with it. Moreover, the participants receiving this information did not know this.
Messages from the Arctic Dixon were intercepted at various points in the Soviet Union. After a year and a half, the task was made more difficult. Thought images were broadcasted from two places, Dixon and Novosibirsk, and received in various locations in Europe, Asia, and America. A huge number of people from 12 countries were involved.
This is about 5,000 participants. This is our biggest synchronized experiment.
The results impressed even the most hardened skeptics. In most cases, the mental images were received quite correctly. It is 1,000 kilometers away. Sometimes the number of correctly received characters reached 95%. There was no chance of random coincidence.
We presented the scientific community with a new system of evidence of the information space. This is how it is.
Ural psychologists placed their hopes in Kozyrev's mirrors and therefore took a slightly different path.
We maintained contact with Novosibirsk scientists, knew their design, so we decided to make it a little different. We assembled a structure not from aluminum but from a special stainless steel alloy.
Coincidentally or not, the Uralian Kozyrev mirror looks a lot like the papal tiara, only on a larger scale. And it seems there's nothing complicated in such structures. But what happens inside them with a person sparks immense interest among researchers.
Almost immediately we came across very interesting, amazing phenomena discussed by visitors to our facilities.
At first, I placed it in the horizontal mirror, and I felt something completely unusual. My body began to solidify at first. I solidified, and it felt like the energy redistributed and condensed again. These were the tides, the condensations and redistributions. That's the feeling. I felt warmth, I felt energy, I felt vibrations throughout my body in every cell. I felt very comfortable and very good. It was like some beam, even a rod pulled me. First up, straightening my back, then straightening my shoulders. For the second year now, I feel straightened out and good. I don't feel like going out anymore. I immediately soared upwards.
I started climbing higher and higher. I haven't seen such big stars anywhere else. They were amazing, cutie. It was all marked up like a chessboard, but instead of black ones, they were very complicated hieroglyphs.
You have to look for
that color.
Sometimes staying in front of mirrors leaves a deeper impression, with some subjects developing amazing abilities.
After I've been in the mirror, I developed an interesting ability. I started to sense the boundaries of the field, whether objects are alive or not. My feelings will confirm this instrument. There is a scientific instrument that measures the boundaries of the field in people. We immediately completed the indications of my hand. Device, and we have a chip up to a centimeter. It's a kind of direct knowledge that starts working within you. I have been to the mirror 5 times. I have a cross-intuitive channel. I clearly know what will happen to me and live in such responsible cases. It's like someone is helping me make decisions that always turn out to be right. You think and feel everything, and it is
The nature of mirror phenomena remains a mystery for scientists. One thing is clear: in the space of concave mirrors, the body activates some special, usually dormant mechanisms. What are these mechanisms and how do they relate to the information field? Science has yet to understand. Knowledge that a person acquires in churches is of a special kind. It is knowledge and experiences that are always symbolic. This symbolism can also be deeply personal, revealing something that a person hadn't fully realized within themselves.
I saw myself in the form of a fish, a white fish. It's so beautiful, plump, with a shiny belly, right? Confident, I believed from the side, but it understood with consciousness that it was me. I felt like as if in real life. All right, let's stop here for today. I do what I have to do. I am realizing my strengths, knowledge, and capabilities. I feel comfortable with this, but I want something more. Look into something else. This fish, it gradually started to rise from the depths to the surface, towards the light and through the water's thickness. I saw the sunlight. It was so enticing, so alluring.
The appearance of these symbols can be explained by several reasons. For example, self-suggestion and another exercise, surfacing from the subconscious some inner hidden things, complex. That's the traditional approach. However, there are cases that cannot be explained with this approach.
This happened over the course of 3 weeks in Arctic Dixon. Inside Kozyrev's aluminum mirrors, a real phantasmagoria took place.
Oh no, this space was presented with a lot of glowing, explode manual, signs and symbols that all the visitors admired. Inside the mirrors, things were really visible, and therefore they lasted longer. That is, well, they, let's say, movement from 9 o'clock. Hadouken.
And these are not subjective sensations. People see these signs not on the inner screen of their consciousness, but in reality. One by one, researchers enter the mirrors who have not communicated with each other and know nothing about the experiences of their predecessors. Each of them sketches symbols they see in the mirror space. Astonishingly, different people see the same symbols.
For several hours, we see how it happens. Of course, the picture, the structure remains. That is, well, these kinds of videos. The young Matus.
Over the course of 6 months, the appearance of more than 1,200 such signs and symbols was recorded. Different people observed them independently of each other. So it was some kind of objective reality. Linguists from the Institute of History of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences have deciphered about 80% of these symbols. It turned out that they belong to various ancient civilizations. They are found on primitive utensils, on megaliths, in rock paintings. A few years later, in 1997, Novosibirsk scientists conducted a joint experiment with their English colleagues next to the famous and mysterious Stonehenge. 200 people tried to receive the information that was mentally transmitted from the Kozyrev mirrors in Novosibirsk. These were Sumerian symbols that have come down to us on long cuneiform tablets. The English accepted these symbols, but the most surprising thing is that besides them, around 70 other signs were received, which were not transmitted in this experiment. They also turned out to be symbols of Sumerian culture.
It is possible that these symbols appeared from that sheet of informational field, which unites all living things and contains information about both the past and the future.
Why did the Novosibirsk scientists choose the Arctic Dixon for their mirror experiments? And in general, what made them leave the equipped academic laboratories and go to the permafrost zone? Today it is already possible to reveal some cards. The researchers were interested in information about the past of our planet.
Thank you very much. The placement of Kozyrev mirrors in the dead zone, which has very deep information. This information has been preserved for approximately 25,000 years. When water turns into ice, then what is the border in Dergi?
When the ice melts, that the information once remembered is radiated. Researchers hoped that with the help of Kozyrev's mirrors it would somehow manifest, after all the distant past. In one of the experiments, symbols were mentally transmitted from Kozyrev mirrors, which were located above the kiksas. They were supposed to be perceived by children from the modern Timlevsky settlement, which is 400 kilometers from Dixon. All the kids were isolated from each other and knew nothing about the symbol they were supposed to understand. The results exceeded all expectations. Thus, symbol number 63 evoked the same image in the minds of different children. Traditional northern Chum, the children of shamanic geniuses, developed more elaborate pictures. One of them drew Shaman Stan, a ritual place on the riverbank where he had only been once with the shaman's great-grandfather. And the great-granddaughter of another famous shaman had single number 32 evoke an area of 3 mountain peaks that she had never seen at all. It seems that the symbols transmitted from the mirrors have stirred up some ancient layers of information, and the children descendants of ancient peoples who once inhabited this polar region perceived them. Visions of bygone times are visited by people and in the focus of Kozyrev's mirrors. Someone's consciousness is transported to the Middle Ages, someone's in an even earlier era.
I saw a person, an image of a person. They were dressed very rich. A military deed, he was like a warrior. It was the head of him. There was a main cleanup on the shores of Lake Geneva. And here was a halberdier with such a rich buckle. And I asked, who is that? And suddenly I would get a response that it was Genghis Khan. I delved deeper and deeper into this image, saw some people, and suddenly spotted another person next to them. I remember the details in the clothing well, especially the star symbol. As I was told, he was an assistant to Genghis Khan in building the empire. As a historian, I found it very intriguing. And as a psychologist, I became interested. Where is this information coming from?
Why do these particular images arise and not others? This is a very important and interesting question.
When a person who, on their own initiative, spends several hours in mirrors, sees themselves as a participant in the events that are happening.
The Russian Empire
Described the course of events that he began to build. That is, it is possible, but it was not the task of our researchers.
Sometimes our patients have moments of clarity, sometimes they don't. But we need to keep trying. Keep trying.
Researchers of altered states of consciousness often encounter such immersions in the past.
People can end up in historical times. Imagine we were observing in the times of Ivan from the Battle of Grozny or Stalingrad, or strolled to the streets of Moscow, or perhaps visited other cities in Russia, for example. It's a journey of consciousness, I would say so.
The human mind struggles to explain images from the past, but it somehow manages. But seeing the future, is that even possible?
I had a question about the son's family. Did he have any problems with his grandson? Good morning. And suddenly, in response to this question, an image popped into my mind. A vivid image, green grass. I am like an external observer, as if I am seeing this image from the side. I didn't see myself there. Of course, I only saw my son and grandson. Yes, I agree. She looked at the houses with astonishment. What's this plot? And I was very surprised. I know my son had no plans. He has an apartment in Moscow, but no house, and it was never in his plans. Bought this house, and then literally a few months later, he actually moved into such a house. That's what I remember.
That's quite a coincidence. The reason for the move is related to his grandson's health. So, if the question is correctly posed, accurate information will be given. The question was about health.
Such episodes could be considered mere coincidences if they did not happen frequently enough. Novosibirsk researchers encountered similar things in the far north during the experiments on thought-form transmission between Dixon Island and the mainland settlement of the same name. Both groups were situated in Kozyrev's
What
mirrors.
happened? Synchronizing with the transmission only roughly retains about 1/3 of the information. 2/3, that's a mansion. Make it cozy so it becomes homely. In the range of 1, 3, 5, 7
Yes, for unclear reasons, this set of symbols was received with many hours of delay. It seemed like the mental message was being stored somewhere all the time. But where? There is no reasonable explanation for this phenomenon yet. It's not like they were sending money orders through the mail. But that's not enough. The real sensation was yet to come.
There wasn't another third time. We walked away from that third time. There's empathy going on there. But with physical time, we encountered the paradox.
The transmission hasn't happened yet. Even the experimenters didn't know what images would be transmitted in the upcoming session. And at the receiving point, these images were already perceived. There are no speech errors. The statistics are serious. Out of 105 cases, more than a third of the transmitted images were received several hours before the session. So, it turns out the mirrors reflected future events. Those that haven't happened yet.
The bronze mirror's significance lies mainly in obtaining early information. But but if we remove the mirror and try the same thing without it, especially without mirrors in the luck zone, this won't be found. There will be some noted delays, but no anticipations.
So we've encountered an effect that today in physics, based on the quantum atomic or whatever structure of the world, I couldn't explain. And physicists claim it's pseudoscience. It couldn't be true, because it can never be. We have conducted these experiments many times. Many times they continue even now.
Predicting the future.
Maybe other factors come into play besides concave mirrors, like the place where the experiments are conducted.
And perhaps here comes the
It's
moment.
time to remember our already familiar Barchenko. His personality is still surrounded by mystery to this day. Materials about this person and his research are still classified, only known. Back in the pre-revolutionary years, Alexander Barchenko, besides studying telepathy, was seriously engaged in the problems of remote suggestion and what will later be called infantry weapon. In 1919, out of the blue, Everick Lee was invited to the Petrograd Institute for the Study of the Brain and Mental Activity, which at that time was led by the world-famous scientist Vladimir Bekhterev. On Dzerzhinsky's orders, the institute was studying human paranormal abilities, the potential for telepathic influence on large masses of people. It's not surprising that such tasks piqued the special interest of both the secret police and scientists due to the mysterious shamanic illness, which had been known for centuries in the northern regions of Ranievo. The Eskimos called it the beard of the North Star, a literal translation. We won't repair it. Pre-revolutionary Russian psychiatrists gave this disease the scientific name polar hysteria, yet they could not understand its cause.
Mariachini is, in my opinion, a very interesting altered state of consciousness, not an illness. This is my eternal name.
The most unusual thing about the Murning is its mass scale. Whole herds suddenly fall into a trance. For many hours, disconnected from the world around them, people mechanically repeat the same rhythmic. They utter clay-like phrases in languages they do not know. They feel no pain. They slavishly obey any instructions from the shamans, even the most ridiculous and dangerous ones. Many can read minds, predict the future, and see what happens miles away. Academician Bekhterev suspected that this mysterious state is caused by some external physical influences. To study them, he sent a special expedition to the Polish peninsula in the year 1920. It was led by Alexander Bachenko. Over 2 years, the expedition members repeatedly experienced bouts of mirage, but whether they managed to find out its cause is still unknown. The expedition report to the VCHK was classified. Alexander Bachenko was later arrested and executed. The question he sought to answer remains open for us. The random or shamanic disease where people get information from the future is most commonly found in polar regions.
Speaking of the influence of the geographical zone on the reception of information, we never managed to get ahead of ourselves in Novosibirsk. Never. It was only, I showed you fragments on Dixon with the participation of another mirror.
Of course, the Arctic Gixon was chosen for experiments not only because of the permafrost. The thing is, around the 73rd parallel, as Kozyrev theorized, there exists a zone where time flows paradoxically. In this zone, time can change its density and direction.
These parameters are not evenly distributed across the planet, and north of 73 degrees latitude, time changes its flow, and access to unrealized information becomes completely open.
In other words, in these latitudes, it is easier than elsewhere to obtain information from the future, more precisely about future possibilities. If that is the case, then the mysterious phrase from the famous Nostradamus starts to sound completely different. The North is a special place where other worlds meet. By the way, a device very similar to Kozyrev's mirror was known to a seer 4.5 centuries ago. That's what the so-called Nostradamus egg looked like. Inside this device, the great seer embarked on his amazing journeys through time. It was said that the secret of this construction, made of several layers of polished metals, was received by the clairvoyant from the descendants of the secret order of the Templars. The existence of an invisible reality has always been believed in, but it has been called by different names. The spiritual world, divine realm, cosmic intelligence, informational field. Many have claimed to draw ideas and receive hints from there. Throughout the ages, humans have tried to penetrate with their consciousness into this subtle world, this universe of meaning. There are such attempts even in our time.
It's one of our global goals to create some kind of global system for dialogue with cosmic entities using mirror systems.
Maybe the sages of the past were right, predicting discoveries that would overturn our understanding of the universe. And who knows, perhaps Kozyrev's mirrors are exactly the instrument that will give us a new impulse in understanding the mysteries of time and the human psyche. Exciting prospects lie ahead. With special mirror setups, researchers could connect to an invisible and mysterious meaningful reality, where our usual concepts of space and time do not exist. From this inexhaustible source, one could draw knowledge about the past and the future, about the structure of the universe, and about other unknown worlds.
I think this area is one of the most fundamental, because we really delve into a world that operates under different principles.
But this is very poorly studied. And I really hope that one day people will take this problem seriously and the scope of research will expand.
I think it's a new era, a new paradigm on planet Earth. We have joined it. We are diving into it as far as we can.
But what Working with information space also carries many threats. These are connected not just with diving into the unknown. There's a huge danger in remote influence on the minds of unsuspecting people, and such research is being conducted. Globally, they are considered top priority. They are given the highest levels of secrecy.
Psi weapons. Psi weapons are very close to this problem. They're not like vacuum bombs. They are scarier. You could bring a whole metropolis to a state of thoughtlessness instantly. You know?
We haven't done this and we're not doing it. We do understand that such things can happen, but we wouldn't want to be defenseless if these attempts were to arise.
There are attempts to use the gigantic planetary mirror, the Earth's electrical shell, the ionosphere, for military and political purposes.
I think that there are firms that don't disclose their work, and you need to be very careful, because these firms aren't working for the betterment of the population. And don't be naive about this. Those antennas, you know, the ones Americans have in Alaska and Greenland, this is no joke.
This is no joke.
Consciousness is a great gift given to humans. Scientists have already uncovered much in this mysterious field. Yet the interaction between human thought and planetary or cosmic consciousness remains an enigma. Research in this area is, without exaggeration, of strategic importance. For some reason, this direction, like genetics and cybernetics in their time, is still listed among the so-called pseudosciences here.
Unfortunately, there's a very, very negative view towards many problems associated with altered states of consciousness.
Well, in Russia, this is still on the verge of that commission already being science. You know, the mood here is heavy. It's very serious. If science doesn't focus on studying Kozyrev's space and developing tools, not just mirrors, we will lose a lot of positive things in ecology. But a lot of scary negative things will be discovered. This is a very big threat if we follow this direction.
The universe is shrouded in mystery. Incomprehensible, and the mystery of cosmic consciousness might be the most fascinating one of all.
Who created meaning?
That lie at the foundation of the universe. Where are they located? What is the informational world of the universe like? How does individual human consciousness interact with it? Well, we repeatedly ask ourselves these questions.
What's up, team?
It is unlikely that the human mind can fully solve the mysteries of existence. But nothing can stop the followers who strive to find answers not only to the traditional scientific questions of what and how, but also to why and for what purpose.